Well, to play his very best TVP, we need to see what the very best PVT is going to look like. On the upper left, in the red right now, he's the German Protoss. It's GunGFuBanDa.
Bottom right side, we are looking at the main base of the Russian Terran player spawning in the blue, representing Twisted Minds as well. His teammates set the right example. Can he follow in those footsteps? It's Nicoract.
And logically, I know that Twisted Minds already have had a bunch of pickups in the last 6 months or so. I mean, they got Classic, and he's now in the GSL round of 4, and kind of the best form we've seen him in a long time. But it takes casting an event like this or something where you just get to see him back to back to back to realize just how many people Twisted Minds have picked up as, supporting not only Classic and these top names, but up and comers, young Yakov, Nicoract. Actually, although in fairness, they've been around for a while, but this tier 2 of the scene, maybe that's really awesome. So shout out to you, Twisted Minds, for making that happen. And let's see whether their support is going to turn Nicoract around a little bit, make him play, make him get the upset.
It is really awesome. It's a shame they didn't make it into the WTL Code S, because they were in Code A, they were in the qualifiers, but they got a bit unlucky. They had a surprising loss early, and I think in the end they lost against Mystery Gaming, who just has a very strong team as well. And I don't think they expected to run into such a strong team. And, you know, maybe they could have picked up one more, not necessarily Classic, but there's someone that's a little bit more experienced than the likes of Nicoract and young Yakov. Even though young Yakov was fantastic in those qualifiers, but unfortunately they could not carry them into the Code S. Maybe next season. If they continue on this track and they'll find, you know, maybe a Gumio or something, right? That would be fantastic. As Nicoract is opening up with the 3-Rex. And you know how I feel about 3-Rex, BO. I've never seen this strategy lose, have you?
Not in a pro game, certainly not. So, question though, is this 3-Rex Reaper? Is this 3? Probably Stim timing. But for now, Reactor's on the way, +1's on the way here. So yeah, this is going to be your more traditional 3-Rex, Stim, pressure rating around like 5 minutes or so. So at this point, it's incumbent upon GunGFuBanDa to figure out what's happening. He's got a Twilight on the way, which means not a ton of sentries early, no Stargate, nothing like that. With this build that Nicoract's opened with, it's not the easiest to get a scout of those the second and third racks.
No. Well, the cool thing about 3-Rex actually in this patch and in this meta is that a lot of people say Stargate openings are dead. I don't know if it's that dramatic, but obviously the new Cyclone is very good against Stargate openings. So yeah, then you're going to see a little more Twilight. And with Twilight, unless the Protoss likes to get a very early sentry that you just mentioned, it is pretty hard to figure this out. And dealing with 3-Rex, like I joke about it a little bit, is obviously not impossible if you know that it's happening and you have your Stalkers very quickly on the other side of the map. So the moment that the Terran starts thinking of their first move out, you're there already to shave off a couple of units, maybe force out an early stim or two. Then obviously your life is easier. If you're just chilling at home, going up to 3 bases, and you don't know that this is happening until the army is halfway across the map, or it shows up at your front door, then it becomes very, very problematic. And GunGfu is actually going up to 3 bases of just 2-gate robo. Now, I don't want to say that he's dead, BO, because that would be way too dramatic. And then the Terran players that are not a fan of 3-Rex will start modding again. But this can honestly get very bad for GunGfu. He sees a lot of Marines. I wonder if that makes the alarm bells go off a little bit. But the longer he keeps these units at home, the more I start being very concerned about the position that GunGfu is going to find himself in.
And realistically, Roddy, that's not even a ton of Marines if you think about it. He's just been reactoring Marines out 2 at a time. It's been Marauders really coming out of the second and third rack. So it's not even, I mean, maybe it's a couple more than you might normally see, but it's not that. I don't think it's enough to really set off alarm bells. So yeah, GunGfu, we have a shield battery. At least there's a shield battery at the third base. There's a shield battery on the way at the natural as well. So, oh, I'm sorry, that's a pylon. So he's got 1 shield battery. Maybe that's going to be worthwhile here. Additional gateways getting added in. But now, Roddy, we ask ourselves the question that you've been alluding to. Is that too late? Is that just not enough? Because here come the Stalkers right now. Did GunGfu see that? I don't think so. I think it took the wrong path. He's on the map right now. Roddy, this is a problem.
Yep, it really is a problem, because right now his army is 7 Stalkers. Now, Nicoract doesn't necessarily know as much as we know, and you don't want to stim too early, but he's going to lead the charge with a couple of Marauders. If they can get on top of the battery, or maybe go for the natural, they're going to battle these Stalkers. He's a bit indecisive now. He turns around and he goes for this. battery is at least going to be able to, no, not on-power it. So this is actually going to turn into a hold, I think, unless the Immortal doesn't come out, but the Immortal will come out. I mean, it's not the worst 3-rack start ever because he gets his 7 probes, but it could have been a lot better for Nicoract if he was just a little bit more decisive. If he would have just pulled the trigger immediately, maybe stim forward with your entire army, get on top of whatever battery you want to go for, but you cannot run into the third base, then turn around, then go for a pylon that was kind of irrelevant, right? That first pylon didn't really do anything because that battery was still powered.
Yeah, I understand the idea. I guess Nicoract didn't see the second pylon. I'm just like, oh yeah, free pylon. I'm gonna depower everything. This game's over. And then you just waste a lot of DPS on a shield battery that doesn't get depowered right there. Stalker's fighting the entire time, although GunGFu got a little maybe too big for his britches there on that. Loses a Stalker, doesn't really get that much in exchange. And now, Roddy, we ask our question of how quickly do you tech up? Right, there's one Immortal on the map, second one on the way, just about done. We're gonna have Colossus ready after that. And in fact, it seems like GunGFu, he's the one that now wants to put the hammer and tongs to Nico a little bit. We got a Warp Prism on the way, charge getting started here. Because this 3-racks didn't work, the funny thing about it is even that as your tech is, or your production's a little bit faster, you're scaling into the mid game. If it doesn't get massive damage, is going to be slower here. Nicoract, we can see that in the army supply. GunGFuBanDa, he's kind of equal. Nicoract is not 20, 30 army supply ahead at this time in the game like we would normally see from a Terran getting ready for a push that hits right now. So that means that GunGFu can get aggressive on the map, that this Colossus, the Stalkers probably are going to be enough to keep him alive at home. And now Nicoract is in a bit of a rough spot. Do you attack, do you defend, and the Observer gets out.
Yeah, that means he has to scan again, and since the third base is pretty late, that's really annoying. Stims forward, 2 Marines will get a second scan, but that's not what you're looking for. GunGFu already got all the info he wanted, and now that Warp Prism is going to show up on one of the worst moments imaginable of your Nicoract. Because I look at that main base, what does he have there? Not a whole lot, and sure, these Zealots don't have charge yet, but even Zealots without charge are a problem if they show up in your main base. Nicoract is just going to cancel the CC, is now going to try to make magic happen with his main army on the other side of the map. But 2 Immortals, a Colossus, a Sentry, this should not go well. I am digging those force fields, because now it's only Marines that were close to the Colossus army. GunGFu is running away with game 1, and I guess history has been made. The 3-racks has fallen.
Well, you know, sometimes execution matters as well, but one Colossus will fall. And the shield, even through the shield battery overcharge, but that's a ballsy pickup. And that's it, yeah. GunGFuBanDa, he gets the medevac with all the units inside. Nicoract falls, the 3-racks falls, Roddy, you're right. Game 1 goes the way of GunGFu.
Yeah, shame. Definitely feel that Nicoract can look back at this game and be like, oh, there was something. There was a whole lot more I could have done there. Now, kudos to GunGFu for having not only a battery in his natural, but also having a battery at the third base. I think that maybe Nicoract was banking on the fact that there was no shield battery in the third, and that's why he was chasing those Stalkers. Because the Stalkers, they kite first, they blink back. But if then the Marines and Marauders stim forward and they can get on top of them, they only need a few seconds to completely wipe the floor with that Stalker army. But because there was a battery there too, Nicoract was like, oh, then I guess I turn around. Then he saw the pylon and he's like, that's the pylon I need to kill, right? Turns out that wasn't the pylon he needed to kill because the battery was still online. The Robo was still online as well, so the Immortal came out. But at that point, most of the power of the push was already gone. I think it was maybe playable for Nicoract afterwards, but a perfect job by GunGFu with the Warp Prism. Got all the info of the Observer, saw the army leaving, saw not 1 but 2 scans being used to kill that Ops, and then right when the army is like halfway across the map, 4 Zealots, even without charge, are a problem if you just have 0 DPS at home.
Yeah, I mean, the micro from Nico at the end of that was pretty nice. He kills a Colossus, he opens up the path maybe, but those force fields were really nice. Everything goes down, just too much damage at home at the same time. And I don't know, maybe Nico sees in the game if he doesn't lose the medevac, right, that had the units inside, if his third base isn't canceled. But between those two things, life is very, very hard. But we got another game, and that means more opportunities to go and do fun things and make comebacks happen and maybe take us to game 3. So in the upper right now, he's actually up a game in the red. It's GunGFu.
And it's gotta feel good to win a game where you realize what your opponent is doing so damn late. Avoided a potential very dicey scenario by just having a couple of batteries. Batteries are often your best friend as a Protoss if you're not quite certain what is happening. In the bottom left side, representing Twisted Minds, he is now down 0-1. Can he turn things around? It is Nicoract.
Game 1, he really tried to twist the mind of his opponent, but just not enough. GunGFuBanDa, his mind resolutely will not be twisted. As already we can see right here, he goes, and I think he had clicked on the right side just to make sure that there was no early mine out, that maybe there was some sort of early Terran proxy. So he's pretty sure that that's not going to happen, at least not this early. And now Probe onto the other side of the map, looking for the actual scout.
Yeah, and Nicoract is definitely a proxy barracks enjoyer, and that doesn't have to lead into an all-out one base all-in, but he just likes to get a bunker up on the other side of the map in the natural. So first you try to get lucky with the Reaper in the main base, maybe get a Probe, perhaps even 2 or 4 if you're playing against the bad Protoss like myself. And then he just sends them back into the natural, and you kind of delay things from Protoss. Something I've seen this young man do time and time again, but he's not doing anything among those likes, and GunGfu has now scouted that as well, sees the barracks in the main base, knows that Nicoract is trying to expand on the low ground, and this Probe is being proper and knowing. You could just build it elsewhere if you want as a Terran, but a lot of Terrans are like, no, it's a principle matter. I want to get this base down where it's supposed to go down, and that's why he had 2 SCVs working on that Probe.
I guess if you think about it, so like you build the command center a little bit off, you gotta pick it up, drop it down, that takes maybe a second. What's the difference between taking that second once it's actually done and taking that second once when you kind of ward off the probe? It's not that big of a difference. So you prevent yourself from forgetting about it and then just mining inefficiently for the next 5 minutes of the game until you realize. So I don't hate it from Nicoract, making sure that he gets exactly what he wants. But we ask ourselves now, Roddy, game 1 was the 3 racks. Obviously, that's not happening in game 2. We already have a factory on the way, so just by default, I think it is still incumbent upon Nicoract to be the one that makes something happen in this game. That has to be the one that gets aggressive, that forces GunGFuBanDa to react to him, because I think in a straight up game, it is going to be pretty GunGfu favored. So the question then is, what flavor of shenanigans are we going to see out of Nicoract? Obviously, the 3 racks didn't work. What do you want to see?
Maybe it's a couple Hellions driving into the natural and an 8 Marine drop in the main base. I think, looking at his setup, I know that's a build that he likes as well. I've seen him do it before. Reaper, by the way, does get a probe. Get out of there before the Adept Shade finishes up. Yes. There's a bit of that annoying Reaper control that I was talking about earlier. Nicoract is very good in somehow finding a bit of damage with the Reaper when you don't really expect it to find damage anymore.
Yeah, certainly. Getting that, you're at 330 in. I mean, you don't expect probes to die at this point. With these Hellions, though, I know we see the medevac on the way. You talk about the Hellion Marine drop. This natural, it takes a while to wall. So even if you just go with the Marine drop in the main, Hellions dive into the natural. That's also, pretty nice idea there. You force GunGFuBanDa, who naturally doesn't want to build a ton of units early, not before Warp Gate's done, not before you're really moving on into that gateway pressure. Maybe you can split them up, but realistically, GunGfu, he's got a decent amount of units. He's got the natural kind of covered. He's got a Stalker in the main base. Sneaking something in. Oh, look at that KDA charge. Reaper dies, but so too does the Adept. It's going to be hard for Nico to sneak something in, I think, though.
Well, I think if you just unload the 8 Marines in the main base, that is a lot of firepower. You absolutely need to respect it as GunGfu, and that means that your doors are wide open in the natural. I don't want to see Nicoract reveal these Hellions before the Marines reveal themselves. I really think you want to wait with the Hellions and then just lead the charge with the Marines. There are 2 Stalkers in the main, but 2 Stalkers is something you should just ignore. Like, you should just go for it with your medevac. You can boost deep into the main base. There's no shield battery there, so just go for it. And I still think there's a lot of potential here for Nicoract, but let's see how good the execution is. GunGfu is now just waiting for those final seconds until he's got Blink, but Blink is going to finish up, and that also gave him enough time for another warp in, and he still has plenty of units in the natural too, so very well done. GunGfu looked at this, felt that he had a really good read. Did he just kill the medevac too? Oh my goodness. He killed the medevac as well. Man, GunGfu made that look so easy. Well, he didn't have a single shield battery, and you think it's kind of difficult to deal with that many Marines and medevac, and then the Hellion threat that could dive into the natural. That is a painful start for Nicoract.
And Roddy, you talked about not revealing those Hellions, dropping with the Marines and then diving into the natural. He had already revealed the Hellions, although that's nice getting a couple probes there just on the third. He'd already revealed the Hellions because they killed the Adept, they killed the Adept on the sensor tower. It meant that GunGFuBanDa was aware that this was likely a two-pronged attack. So it would have been very easy for GunGfu to just dive into the main base, pull his entire army there because, oh, 7 Marines and a medevac, that's scary. But instead, he kept Stalkers in the natural. He kept that body blocked out and did not allow Nico to do anything that he wanted to do. Now, I mean, the Raven Harassed is nice. He gets another probe, but we're looking at 4 dead probes over the course of this game. GunGFu's got his third base done. He's up 6 workers right now. Charge on the way, +1 on the way. He is very happy about how this game is going.
Yep, and Nicoract will be very unhappy. Not just because he's down a couple workers, you know, that is not an uncommon place that Terran players find themselves in. But when you go for an opening like the one that Nicoract chose, you know that you delay everything else and you need to find a damage. Whether you kill a couple of the Stalkers or ideally you kill a bunch of probes, the bare minimum force probes to run away, right? Because there is temporarily not enough firepower to deal with all those Marines. None of those things worked out, and means that GunGfu has a very easy and smooth ride into the mid game, and Nicoract knows that something needs to start going his way. But the longer the game goes on, the more difficult it becomes, because Protoss is going to get more and more gateways, so they can always warp in where they need it. They're going to get some more map vision. We have observers out right now revealing this drop as well. Don't know if I would reveal my Stalkers on the edge. I would kind of say let Nicoract come in, because the single drop is just not scary, right? So ideally you want to see these units come mid. Stalkers blink. They do not blink close enough to the medevac to kill it, but at least it's another minute where GunGfu is just not going to take any damage. His army is increasing in strength very quickly, and Nicoract maybe has potential in an interference matrix. But yeah, I was getting to the second starport, by the way, kind of early, so that is cool to get a bunch of Vikings to deal with the Colossus. But it's going to take a while before all of that comes into play.
And, you know, I think, so there's been a lot of conversations about the balance patch, about how things change and how things, for a large part, have kind of stayed the same. But I think one thing that is important between the Viking buff that we had in the previous patch, not the one that we had about 3 weeks ago, and the fact that disruptors are just not as good with additional supply, and also their Nova radius getting smaller in the last 2 patches combined, you do kind of want Colossus longer into the game right now. Again, disruptors are just not as good as they used to be. They inflate your supply more. So moving on to this double Viking play that I assume it's going to be, it means you can go into Liberators once the Colossus are dead. As the late game, does feel like in part the late game of the Protoss has been nerfed a little bit. Well, Nicoract just trying to go in that direction. That's a pretty solid move. Obviously, he's not going to win on 3 bases. It's not likely, but you go to 4, you go to Mass Viking, Liberator, something like that. That can work out a little bit better, I think.
And Nicoract is still being very aggressive here, and already lost 1 medevac. Is probably going to lose the second one as well, even though he has on power the cannon. That's cute, but I think GunGfu should just blink forward, let the Zealots come in, and then just kill that medevac. I'm almost sad that Nicoract is now being as aggressive as he is, since GunGfu never went up to 4 bases. Like, if GunGfu went up to 4 bases and has 80+ probes, yeah, you need to pull out moves like this. You need to start finding some damage as a Terran. But if it's 3 base against 3 base and you've got double starport against Colossus, I'm kind of sad that he has just donated as many buy units as he did, because he's actually mining more as we speak. He's got 70 SCVs triple orbital against the 3 base Protoss. Real shame that he just lost so many bio units, but he might still be able to turn around again on top of this army. We're going to drop an anti-armor missile, and really looks like a very promising fight for Nicoract. GunGfu knows it, and that's why he drops a couple of defensive force fields.
Yeah, it almost feels like GunGFuBanDa wants to go all in here off his +2 timing. I guess now we have that 4th base on the way, but Roddy, I was going to ask. Oh, no, the Colossus take the wrong path. Oh, pathing, please. David Kim ruining GunGFuBanDa there with the rocks getting taken down. The Colossus, they just went the wrong side because cliffs are a thing, Roddy. And now, GunGFuBanDa, what does he have? He's got 2 Archons. He's got Zealots. I'm really surprised that we don't see Nicoract just punishing that thing immediately, stimming onto the 3rd base, because what exactly was GunGfu supposed to do there? His tech is just not good.
No, but just like how maybe earlier he didn't have to attack, I think after killing all these Colossus, you also don't have to attack immediately. Since he is transitioning into an even stronger army, he's adding in the Ghost, he's got 2 upgrades on the way, he's dropping another command center. Maybe he was worried if he would commit to an attack, a War Prism or a Zealot run by, right, can really ruin things and complicate things at home. GunGFu, I think, just for the longest time, assumed Nicoract would 2-base all in him. And Nicoract is a very aggressive Terran player, didn't have a good start, so maybe GunGFu thought, as long as I'm on 3 bases, I will be fine, because you're going to attack into me again. I'm not going to make the mistake of going up against, or going up to 4 bases when I think you're on 2 bases, because then I'm just being too greedy. But yeah, because GunGFu kind of misread the game, Nicoract completely found himself back into it. And yeah, with the Colossus donation, he didn't just find himself back into it. He's absolutely winning right now. We do have a big fight in the top left side. The Nova whiffs. I mean, well done. GunGFu is just falling apart and is having a very, very hard time right now. I think even figuring out where he wants to be in this game.
Yeah, I think he's dead, actually. The 4th base will fall. The army, I mean, this run by the Zealots in the main base, actually, they're worth a lot of damage. 12 SCVs died, 15 SCVs go down. Zealots finding where the SCVs want to be on the 4th base as well.
eBay getting fully surrounded. That's a big pickup. So +2 is denied. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you want to see. And since GunGFu doesn't really have any Colossus anymore, I don't want to say all the Vikings are useless, but they're not super useful at the moment. That tank is exposed. This game is getting very scrappy at the moment. Where are these ghosts, right? Because we need to land a couple of EMPs on this Protoss army.
I feel like we need more splash damage, though, from GunGFu. Yes, this has been an incredible 30 seconds. 21 dead SCVs, denying +2 attack. All that is massive. But he doesn't have a lot of splash. He's got 4 disruptors, or, you know, maybe they're starting to do it. Technically, Archons are splashed. They don't count against bio. You just cut away from them. Maybe 4 disruptors are enough here, Roddy. If GunGFu gets the connections that he needs, but Nico comes in from the side. No. Look at this concave from the man, but the disruptors won't land just yet. Second round find their way in. Those shots are a little bit better. Third round goes in. Not good. And now Nico chases down. Disruptor shot again, fails to land here. And now Nico, he's on top of the disruptors and killing them all off. Stalkers will not take this fight. But Zealots into the natural once again. Nico, every single time he moves out, it's Zealots in his natural, in his third, in his main that are doing so much to keep GunGFu into this game, Roddy. It's insane how much they're doing.
Yep, and Bio, they didn't just kill another eBay there, even though there was no upgrade on the way, and 9 SUVs, and they're not just pulling back the army. They single-handedly killed the command center that was chilling at that 9 o'clock spot. So Nicoract is no longer a 4-base Terran, he is now a 3-base Terran, and he's gonna have a very hard time now finding a way to the other side of the map, as he's losing more SUVs. You gotta worry about DTs as well. GunGFu is finding some magic with just Zealots and Stalkers, and of course 4 superior upgrades at this point. He's got +3. Even Stalkers start dealing damage once they have +3. So, a very strong minute. I thought GunGFu was going to make a mistake walking up that ramp, but I think he did a really good job in being patient with his Novas and obviously keeping the Terran busy and then finding everything he wanted to find with his Zealots. Nicoract is now going to try to chase one more time, maybe able to tag a couple of these disruptors. Very sexy control there. Splits the majority of his units, but GunGFu has reinforcements for days, and Nicoract, his economy is in shambles.
Oh, yeah, Disruptor shot won't land again. Nicoract, he's doing a great job of making these splits happen, but Roddy, you're right. It's a macro game. It's a game of the economy here in 35 SCVs, 67 probes, only 3 mules at a time. It's not looking good. There was a world where GunGFuBanDa, I don't think he had to make that last attack. He was down 30 army supply. He was fine, and that maybe gave Nicoract a bit of a window, but at this point, he's up in army supply. Nicoract, he doesn't have the upgrades, as you said. He's only at 1-2, which is a weird upgrade set for a Terran, by the way. GunGFuBanDa, he's at 3-2. That armor upgrade is complete. More disruptors getting added in. At this point, I feel like we need to see Nico start to drop a lot. Go and drop into the natural, drop into the 4th base at the same time, into the main base. Start to try to split up GunGFu in the same way that GunGFu split up Nico, and fight your way into the game that way. Because in a straight-up fight, down this many upgrades with all the disruptors and everything else, Roddy, that's a hard fight to take straight up.
Yeah, I get your point, but it's also difficult to drop into a Protoss with A, a lot of vision, B, a lot of money, C, 10 gateways, superior upgrades, because Zealots and Stalkers are very good against Marines and Marauders. If the numbers are small, Novas are going to blow up a lot of the Terran force here. in the right side of the map as GungFu is now just exploding, taking a gold base as well. And when the upgrades are this much in favor of the Protoss, gateway units are incredible in small numbers. And most of the time when you're dropping, you're always fighting with only 10 or 12 units. And that is just not going to go Nicoract's way. I'm afraid that this game is kind of over, as he does find himself a disruptor there. He has killed a whole bunch of them, but I think the Marauders are not going to cut it. And the last problem with dropping, by the way, is that there is a Dark Shrine. So GungFu can always warp in a DT here and there, and that's going to force Nicoract to scan non-stop. And scanning is really painful if you only have 44 SCVs.
Yeah, you really can't afford it. But now finally there's a fourth base. Okay, Nicoract, he's got his fourth base up again. It's a planetary. There's a missile turret here. He's only down one base on the Protoss, and technically the gold isn't mining yet. So maybe Terran Copium, I don't know, hope. But at this point, man, the upgrades are so good. +3 armor, shields on the way. At least shields don't matter when EMPs exist.
That is truly looking at the bright side of life. Kind of feels that everything at this point matters in this game, as Nicoract is just so far behind. Definitely played good, right? I had a rough start, because if you open up with 3 heli and 7 marines, matter of fact, you get nothing done. You're like, oh no, this is going to be painful. But then he just played a macro game. GungFu had a bit of a misread, and I think that Nico will look back at that one fight with the Disruptors and the Archons near his own triangle, where he kind of tried to split a lot against the Disruptors. I kind of think that was a moment where you just stim forward and you try to get on top of that army. He had a couple of EMPs, and then even if the Novas are big, it doesn't matter because you're right on top of the Protoss army, and I think he would have always won that fight. And then I think the Zealots would have done a lot less. But while he's chasing, it just takes forever. You have to split non-stop, you have to stim over and over again, and the longer that went on, the more damage those Zealots find that killed his command center. We're basically in the exact same spot again, but this time around the Protoss army is way bigger and way scarier than it was a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah, and we do have to point out, by the way, just how well GunGFuBanDa has played to come back into this game. Because, yeah, Roddy, if he had taken that fight maybe a little bit better, maybe he does steamroll across the map and win the game despite his economy going down. But before GunGFuBanDa put like 20 Zealots in the main base and the Natural in the third and really shut things down, this was absolutely Nicoract's game to lose. And now Disruptor shots are going to go off here, targeting the down best as he can. Colossus, they're jumped upon as well, but the Disruptors are absolutely landing. And the force fields means you can't take the chase the way you would like. It's the best possible fight for Nico Brady. But best possible fight doesn't necessarily mean it's a good one. And there we go, the G. Nico, he falls down, and GunGFuBanDa brings himself back into the Swiss stage 1-1.